Well, I'm delighted to be here today with renowned historian Dermot Kiely from Cullen. Dermot, I would consider a good friend of mine, and he even taught me in the past, a long time ago there.
In the local
In
vocational
the
school
local
across the
vocational
road there.
school. So I think it is a pleasure for me today to be here with Der and to have a little chat with him about his father and a bit more than that. And when we talk about his father, we're talking about the activities that his father Roger had in the War of Independence. So you might tell me about your dad. Where was he born?
Well, he was born down the road there. His house, the house he was born in is there. It is now occupied by John Hickey. And that's where they lived. There was a big family of them there. There was 3 nuns in the family and a Christian brother. And yes, and so there was a nurse and a couple of teachers and that, you know. So that's the way.
That's right. There was 11 altogether in the family, was there? Yeah.
You know more about
No.
it than me.
Yeah.
But he was trained in the De La Salle College in Waterford. And I'll show you a picture, I'll give you a picture I have there of him in the football team. And he was holding the football. So he was the captain of the team. I think he was a good footballer. And afterwards, I think that various people who were trained with him were asking him to play football with their team. And he used to play for a team in Tralee and also a team in Macroom and possibly Cullen as well. So that's the way. But
very good. And where did the Kielys come from, dear?
well, my grandfather came from County Limerick.
Yeah.
And if you remember last year, a man called Rory Kiely died down in County Limerick in Fina. And my grandfather came from the farm where he lived. And he was a great... his father was Martin Kiely, and our grandfather used to sign himself John M. Kiely. And I have a little certificate there saying that Martin was a member of the Society for the Preservation of the Irish Language in the year 1877. So our grandfather was also an enthusiast for Irish. And after the Gaelic League was founded in 1893, he started teaching Irish in Cullen School, and he got into trouble with English inspectors. So he was fighting with them all the time. So that's the way that was his outlook, you see.
And of course he married a local girl there.
Yes, from Rathawang, yes.
Yeah. Elizabeth O'Keefe.
Oh, our grandfather, yes.
Yeah,
Sorry,
your
she was
grandfather.
local, of course, yes.
Yeah.
And you see, first of all, he was staying in Mill Street, and he was walking out to Cullen every day to the school. So the parish priest got him lodgings with the O'Keefe family, and he married one of the O'Keefes, Elizabeth then. And there was an Irish poet in Cullen. He was known as Duhallow Crahor. He wrote poems in Irish. He was a native Irish speaker. And my grandfather used to... he didn't like writing. He was a poet, but so when he wanted to write down his poetry, he used to come to my grandfather and get him to write it down. And they eventually published a book of his poetry, which I forgot to bring up today. And but unfortunately, the man was dead before the book came out. He died in 1930. He was Duhallow Crahor.
Yeah.
He was a stonemason, and he also built my grandfather's house.
Oh, yeah. And was he a nationalist? Did he have an interest in the troubled times that were?
Oh, well, I'd say he did, yes. Because otherwise, the family wouldn't have been nationalist, you see.
Yeah. So you're saying he had an influence on your father, who we are going to talk about?
He would have had, yes.
Yeah. So your dad, Roger Kiely, was born in
1896.
Yeah.
And as I said, he went to training college in the De La Salle in Waterford and that. And he got, I think he started teaching in Cullen about 1918. And then it was in 1921, as you say, that he was arrested in Cullen School when they decided and taken off to jail.
Yeah.
Now, as I was saying to you, that in the somebody married to a local person here wrote a book about the jail in Sunday as well, the women's jail, and there were names written on the wall there, and Roger Kiely's name is down there. So they must have spent a couple of weeks there before they were taken to Spike.
Yeah, and that takes us neatly, like, when we come along, in our chat that we'll be talking about, when he did eventually get arrested, and he was on his way with other people from this area as well, up to Spike Island. So we might take the story from there then, that day, which is coming up shortly, I believe, as well, there.
Yes.
So are you ready for that, a trip up to Spike Island?
I hope I
Not
am,
to be
yes.
kept there, no, mind you, or anything, yeah?
I hope I am, yes.
Good stuff, that's good. So your mother was a teacher as well, and taught in
right,
Cullen,
yes.
yeah? So
She was trained in England, actually. That was the fashion at the time, sending people to England to be trained.
Yeah. Now, did Roger, your dad, ever talk to you about what influenced him and why he kind of got involved with the troubles that
Well,
were?
he didn't really, he didn't. But I remember him saying that Sean Mylan told him that it wasn't his business to be going to ambushes, but to be collecting information. That was his business. He was an intelligence officer. So I don't believe he took part in any ambush.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. He was considered one of the special people that had great qualities, which we'll kind of maybe come across later in the military bureau, submissions by local people at the time, and I believe that his name kept coming up and up and up all the time for the accomplishments and what he did. He was what was considered a special person. But he didn't talk much about it, so I take.
He didn't talk much. He didn't talk much to us anyway.
Yeah.
But, I mean, he was very friendly with Sean Mylan, of course.
He was, yeah. They were good friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about Cullen at that time? There was Cullen kind of an IRA stronghold?
Well, to some extent it was, of course. There were definitely IRA people there, but it hasn't been written about. You see, the Mill Street people wrote up about their place, and they didn't mention Cullen at all. So, but obviously the Cullen people were there. You had another person, Humphrey O'Donoghue, there.
That's right.
He was known as the Kid because he had a rifle and he was very good at using it. They said that he was responsible for shooting a number of black and tans and that kind of thing. But I don't know. He took part in the ambush in Clonbannon.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether he was in Turin-Gorv or not. I don't know now.
Yeah. And of course that brings us on neatly then, like, to Sean Mylan. Sean Mylan was the commander-in-chief of the flying column at the time. Yeah.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
of course.
And of course he was another Limerick man as well, wasn't he?
He was,
Wasn't there a
I
lot of Limerick people kind of associated with the troubles around here as well?
I
religion
don't
and
know,
all
but you see what happened was he married a lady from Kiskane.
Yes.
And that's what brought him around.
Okay.
He married one of the Shamrock family. And they're still there, and they're still... John, the Shamrock, is still in the post office in Kiskane, and he's...
Yeah. So they were dangerous times.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Ambushes, like the new time. There's famous ones, isn't there?
Yes.
What about Turin-Gorv?
Yes, well, I believe that my father got information which led to the ambush at Turin-Gorv. But really, I don't know. You know that there was somebody, an English person, who was they captured him, and some of the IRA wanted to kill him, and Sean Mylan said, "No, if you kill him, I'll kill you." And that person later spoke up for Sean Mylan when he was arrested and was in danger of being executed himself.
Yeah. Turin-Gorv was kind of, it was well set up by Sean Mylan, mind and all the rest of it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It was near enough to my own home place. Yeah, and I often heard tales of the ambush back there along, of course, also with the Titanic. We had Bally Desmond as well, was kind of associated with the Titanic times. Yeah.
Yes, I remember being at a funeral in this graveyard, and somebody pointed out to me a lady who had been rescued from the Titanic. and she lived in Ballydesmond afterwards. So she's probably one of the people you were talking about.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we talked to a lot of them that kind of survived and well, relations of theirs that
Yes,
survived
yes,
and things. Yeah. But I suppose that's another story as well. But with Turin Garov, there was big casualties there as well,
Oh,
and
yes,
and they actually knocked out the what was his name, General Holmes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember a new man from Turin. I mean, he was young at the time, but he said he was up on the hill over the Turin Garavamas and he saw all the action.
There you are. That's interesting.
He was, what's his name now? Oh Lord, Sheehan was his name,
Yeah.
I think. He was a relation of ours, like, you know, from my mother's side.
That's interesting.
Oh, yeah.
But with Turin Garov as well, it was of course all the guns, rifles, shotguns that they recovered and ammunition.
Oh, yes,
they had a real haul there in when they did strike, and they have to take out the big man at the.
Well, he was a Republican.
Yes.
And when afterwards, for a couple of years after, when he used to go to Mill Street, he was arrested by the guards.
Yes.
And of course afterwards the blue shirts were attacking him in the 1930s. And that's the way.
Okay. So that was a feature of your youth, was it?
Oh yes, well we knew that there was a particular view that we held.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Were you born mid-30s, is it?
I was born 1933.
33, okay.
I'm 86 now.
86, right. Okay. What did you work at then as in your own lifetime?
You know, I was a teacher there in the local school, but that was closed down then, and people were transferred to Mill Street, and I got a job in Ramore Vocational School, and I was there for that. And then, what year was it? 30 years ago, the government decided there were too many teachers and they could make some of them, give them early retirement, that would be cheaper.
Right.
You see, to give them a reduced pension rather than paying them a full salary.
Right.
So I applied, and after some difficulty I got it.
Right.
So it is great. So I started working then as a volunteer in the credit union in
That's
Mill Street,
right,
and that's, you see.
Okay. And the credit union had an important role in rural Ireland.
Oh yes, it is, yes. But of course now the civil servants, the central bank, want to make such rules and regulations that it is like prison now, you know. It's terrible.
Yeah. I always think in these graveyards that a lot of the headstones were probably paid for out of a credit union.
Well, possibly, yes.
You're not conscious of people coming in for a few bob after a funeral or anything? No.
Oh, well, yeah, we used to pay the funeral expenses. I mean, the relatives would bring in the funeral expenses, and if there was money in their account, we'd pay that.
Okay.
We'd also make a claim for insurance, of course.
Okay. So it was a very important part of Irish society, the credit union.
Oh, it has done great
from
work.
about 1920 onwards, is it? Yeah.
Oh no, it was much later than that.
Later, when you were involved.
Yeah, but I don't know, was there any credit union business before that? It was
1958.
1958.
And of course the lady who was was Nora Hurley from Ballydesmond.
Right.
I met her once.
Right.
Yeah.
And she was a great lady.
Was she?
Oh, she was.
She impacted so many lives in this country.
Oh, she did, yes, she did. I mean, she was like the lay version of Mother Teresa now. That's the kind of person she was.
The impact she had.
Yeah.
Look, we're here at the family grave there. This is both your mum and your dad are both buried here.
Yes. Sorry, I should have painted up those clearly, you see. But that's the way. And my father died suddenly in 1967.
1967.
And my mother died. Rory O'Kyle. That's my grandfather used to write himself Sean O'Kyle, you see.
Yeah.
And that's the way.
And your mother was Nora?
Nora Buckley, and she died in 1971.
Okay. And do you remember their funerals? Were you here?
Oh, I was, yes.
Do you remember them?
Oh, I do, yes.
50 years ago?
Yeah.
And like when you come to the graveyard, like it's a way of, like today, you're in your late 80s, do you still see your mum and dad in your head as if it was back them days?
Well, yes, but I mean after Mass every Sunday I say a prayer here like that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And it's fair to say, like, that anything that's happening around here, historical or otherwise, there, even this graveyard mass, which was here recently,
Yeah.
and myself and there, we sat down there for it as well.
Yeah.
Had it, nice. But something that we mightn't have just kind of talked about there, when we were talking about the other generations as well, was the love of Irish. Irish was big. Cullen, like, would be kind of associated with the Irish language.
Oh, yes.
And
was.
your dad was, and along with the Irish language, what was the other thing? Music.
Oh, yes.
Didn't he start, when he was in school, he started...
He started a band,
band.
a fife and drum band in 1936.
Right.
And I have a picture of it over at home. I couldn't bring it up today now because it's actually a frame picture. But that's the way.
Yeah.
And he played, I remember in 1944, there was a by-election in South Kerry. And there was a Fianna Fáil TD, Fred Crowley. He came on one Sunday evening asking to bring the band to Killarney because Dev was coming down, and we did. So we played behind for De Valera.
1944.
1944.
Great.
That's some memory, isn't it?
Hopefully,
That's
yeah.
a great memory. That's
Yeah.
a gym now, isn't it?
It is,
Yeah. A lot of people probably wouldn't know that.
No.
No.
Well, no, except that an army officer came. He said he was representing the president
Okay. Okay. In 67.
in 67,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, lovely.
The burials, you see, this church was built in 1908,
Okay.
and they started, they started burying people here fairly
Okay.
quickly because the old graveyard was full.
Yeah.
And but I heard my father saying later that they were sorry that there was ever a graveyard put here,
Right.
and that they should have found a graveyard somewhere else. That it would be nice to leave the church on its own.
Right. Right.
But anyway, there was an addition to the graveyard in about 1964.
Right.
Because this was full, and the parish priest of the time, Canon Costello on Mill Street, one evening that I was here, I think I came to stay at the stations, and he appeared and he says, at that time, where the parking lot is over there was grass and trees. He said, cut down those trees and we'll make a graveyard out of that. And I said to him, I heard my father saying they were sorry they ever put a graveyard there. And I knew that after the war, the county council had taken compulsorily land from that family, the O'Keefe family, down near the village to build houses, and no houses were ever built. So I said to him, you go to the county council now and tell them to give back that land and ask him for land for the graveyard. And they did that, and that's how that extension was given there, which is now two-thirds full.
There's 3 graveyards here.
It is now two-thirds full.
The village that we recorded
Yes.
a while back, and this, and the new one as well.
But incidentally, in case I didn't say it already, did I say about Father Tucker?
No.
Well, you mentioned the
Father
York
Tucker
Town.
is a retired priest in Ballydaly, halfway between Mill Street and Ramore. And he has a document which he got in the British Library, and according to that document, it had to do with papal taxation, and it dates from the year 1302. And at that time, there was a church in Cullen, and there was a church in Drumtariff. But I mean, Mill Street and those wasn't heard of, and Drushan Castle wasn't built for another 150 years. But I was going to say something else there now. Oh Lord, it's gone out of my head.
Father Tucker.
Oh, but that's Father Tucker's part of it now. But, oh yeah, Dr. Smith's History of Cork came out about 1750. And he visited Cullen, and he said there was the ruin of a religious house there, but he couldn't decide whether it was a monastery or a convent. But it disappeared about 1880. And what happened, I believe, was this, that at that time the Mill Street Board of Guardians decided to build a wall around the old graveyard below, and they probably told the mason, there's an old building there, you can get the stones out of it. But there's a mania in this country for knocking down old buildings. And if I could mention another thing now that hasn't to do directly with Cullen, about half a mile west of Bordeaux village, there was a Bianconi house, and there were people living there, and I knew one of them. But you see, that generation grew up, and left and got to work, and the next generation built a new house across the road, and they sold the piece of land that was there and that, and the people who bought it planted the land and knocked down the building. But there's a mania in this country for knocking down all buildings.
Yeah.
Just after Catholic emancipation, there was a new church built, but when you said it was a new church, it was a very low building with a mud floor and all that. And that's what was there, and this church was built in 1908.
James, wasn't it? Yeah.
Well, you see, is it St. James? Because the 25th of July is the feast of St. James, I think. And that's why it's called St. James's Church.
Just as we started there, you had a phrase, Oscuelga, Fuin Clara?
Yes. Kyo Wishere is Clara Clown and Cora Sinninge is farer down. You know, Kyo are Fog on Mushre and Clara Clear, you can see Clara over there. That's a sign of good weather, the best sign of good weather.
Okay. The nicest sight in the world, is it?
Well, I mean, it is the best sign in the world of good weather. Kyo Wishere is Clara Clown and Cora Sinninge is farer down. And Tahar Padre O'Leary has that in his book Miscellany Féin.
Right. Okay. And you said Padre O'Leary had family from over this direction?
His mother was born here across the road.
Right.
In that farm, she was O'Leary. She was about a fifth or sixth cousin of his father, because they kept in touch over the years, you know, for 100 years. So her name was Siobhan O'Leary.